If you're interested in building a strong community, this episode is for you. Joining me today is Chris Edwards, who is the founder and CEO of the Honeycombers and now Launchpad. Good to have you in the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
So I'm curious, how did you get started building the community first?
When we launched, which was in 2008, it was before smartphones. Everyone was listening to iPods. It was a long time ago. And Singapore was really evolving, and it was actually really hard to find where to go for things in Singapore. So I remember it was about the time when there was only about 6 coffee shops in Singapore that actually had espresso machines, right? So you had to really know where to go for Australian or Italian style coffee. And so I suppose where I started with both businesses is really focusing on what does the community need? What is something that is missing or would be really helpful for that community? And I modeled both communities on myself. And at that time, I was a young expat living in Singapore. And I really did need to know how to tap into, all the good stuff that was happening in Singapore. So that's how I started.
Awesome. So it sounds like you built a community first for yourself, and then others definitely found it helpful along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really easy to build a community around your own profile because you know that profile really well and you understand that demographic and what that consumer need is, I suppose.
Absolutely. Now, I'm curious because was there a specific platform you used? I know you leveraged the Honeycombers website. Were there any other channels that you found helpful in terms of building your community early on?
So what did I use for my channels? I suppose the Honeycombers was quite low tech, to be honest. So we're on a WordPress site, which is actually a free platform. And we used email a lot. So email marketing was a big part of how we created that community. And then doing in-person events has been a really big part of both businesses, actually getting the community together. But yeah, it's been pretty low tech. I'm a low tech person.
Hey, if it works.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds like you had the content from the Honeycombers and now the Launchpad platform. You've built up the email database, it sounds like, off that content, and then leverage that email database to organize events, it sounds.
Yeah, exactly. And none of it's been easy. We've got, I think, a total of 150,000 subscribers at Honeycombers, but it's been a really big focus. Even now in our 15th year, we're still innovating and trying to find new ways to make it a meaningful connection and engagement. So, for example, 3 months ago or 2 months ago, we did a campaign where we said we're going to donate $1 for every new subscriber to a local charity. And I thought that was a really great campaign, but it hasn't actually gone amazingly well. But you just got to keep experimenting and keep trying new things. But yeah, so we're constantly learning, testing, trialing, failing, and trying something new. So yeah.
That's what it's all about. And 150,000 is pretty impressive. May I ask how you grew it to that size? Were there any lessons along the way that you want to share with the listeners or viewers today?
Oh, I've constantly tried to think about what can I offer that's valuable in exchange for people to sign up to the newsletter. So I've actually just started a new newsletter just recently, which is a personal newsletter from me. God knows how many newsletters we send out now in total, but this one comes out on Sunday, and it's just my own personal thoughts about running a business. And I suppose I personally love a good email, an email that really speaks to you. And I've been inspired to create this new email from just reading other people's emails and really enjoying. It's a really low tech email again. So it's actually a plain text email from me to people who are interested in Launchpad. And it's really my internal ramblings or thoughts for the week. And for that one, I've really modeled the email style on James Clear's email. I don't know if you subscribe to James Clear. Everyone does, and everyone loves it because it's so simple. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this format for myself to really see if I can build community through conversations, which I think is what we've done. And I engaged someone from Launchpad to help me, and I've just got their report today. Actually, it's really interesting. So she's an email marketing expert, and she did a deep dive onto Launchpad and how we're going. And she said we have an open rate of 66% when the industry average is 22, and a click-through rate of 14.7% when the industry average is 3 to 5%. So I'm super happy with those results. Isn't it funny that you have to have a consultant go into your active campaign and count up? And so that was the results from the last 6 months on our averages. But yeah, so email has been a large part of the strategy, and I find email really great because I find it really intimate and cost effective. Like you're not having to pay that much to talk to people via email. And a new thing we're doing this year as well is podcasting. I feel like podcasting is another really beautiful, intimate way to talk to your community and share knowledge and share value. But I feel like there's something so intimate about listening to someone's voice. And yeah, so we've launched the Good Business podcast. There's a little plug.
Yes, definitely soothing listening to your voice. Now, my voice on their hand, I don't know if people enjoy it as much, but I still put the episodes out there.
It doesn't matter what your voice is. It's very personal, and people walk around, hang out with you, and for an hour or hours at end, and you don't even realize it. But I think a voice is, no matter what voice it is, it's more personal than text on a page. So yeah, I suppose looking at mediums that have this intimacy is really a valuable part for community building.
Absolutely. One thing I think a lot of folks struggle with, myself included, is once you build out the community, how do you keep them engaged? Because, for example, you have 150,000 in Honeycombers and X amount with Launchpad. How do you keep them engaged? You talked about the events, but is there anything else you do to keep them along this journey?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think with community, particularly if it's a paid community like Launchpad, I think the most important thing is just to be listening to what they need and really delivering value for them. And so creating things that they want to be engaged about. I think about 6 weeks ago, we ran a masterclass on how to use ChatGPT, and we had 150 people turn up to that masterclass. Our membership's almost about to hit 500, which is pretty cool. But to get, what is that? My maths isn't very good. 30% engagement of the whole community to come to. And it was a Thursday before a long weekend. I think it was before Easter long weekend. So it was terrible timing. But it is easy to attend those masterclasses because they're on Zoom. And people know that they're going to get value out of them. I think it's just constantly thinking about what your community needs and trying to serve them with what they need. And we've got 76 people coming to an event next week in Singapore as well. So that's an in-person attendance. So that's pretty cool. We're hoping we'll hit 100 for that event. But yeah, I think you're just constantly looking at the data of what's working and what people are enjoying, and then trying to do more of that.
Yeah, those are massive figures, especially here. One thing I want to get your thoughts on is in-person events, because Singapore is a very competitive market. I feel like there's an event going. Actually, we're hosting events next week as well, too. It is a lot of events for a relatively small population. So I'm curious, how are you able to, obviously, people know you, they like your content. Are there any tips or tricks for attracting the right people and the right volume of people to these in-person events, which have become increasingly difficult here?
Yeah, I think it's about bringing someone to the event, a speaker to the event that people know and want to hear. So I think it's really about finding good speakers where people know that they're going to get value. And so often it's like having someone from Netflix talk, or like you're leveraging bigger brands to draw in the crowds. And we run events in Bali, KL, and Hong Kong, and soon to be Australia. And they're harder markets for us. Like I definitely think we are riding the coattails of Honeycombers, because Honeycombers has such a strong, I suppose, brand awareness. We are doing another big number. We have 1 million unique visits on Honeycombers every month. So lots of people in Singapore know and use Honeycombers. So that's something we've been leveraging. But we're doing events in other markets, and it's definitely a lot harder in other markets. So what we do then is try and partner with great brands that people want to come and hear speak. So in Hong Kong, we've got 2 other speakers, not just me, because I'm not really as big a brand up there, or same with KL, where we don't have Honeycombers at all. So yeah, I face the same challenges, and it is It's hard. It's really hard. It's hard work, and it takes a lot of grunt and just even trying to get your speakers to share your content. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of kind of keeping on it. I don't want to say nagging, but it is nagging. Please, can you share this on LinkedIn, social, and please tag us as a collaborator on Instagram. And it's in their interest too. So the speakers that are really great at marketing will share it because it's great marketing for them as well. So it's really about that speaker selection and also being really upfront about when you ask someone to come to an event, just say, we would hope that you'd feel comfortable sharing this widely on specifically Instagram and LinkedIn. Are you comfortable with that? Like actually asking them before they say yes. So being really direct and asking for what you need is another learning we've made recently, just to be really assertive.
Yes, I definitely have been guilty of nagging recently on our recent events. But like I said, it's something that has to be done. Now, it sounds like in terms of events, whether it's physical or online, the bigger brands, like you said, the well-known brands like the Netflix of the world, maybe the LinkedIns, the Apples, whatever, tend to draw, I guess, the audience's attention, when you say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they know that those brands have got a success story, and so they're easier to, yeah, attract a crowd.
Yeah, it's a very good Gary point. The struggle is, like you said, for the lot of smaller or lesser known brands. But to your point, they could still partner up, even if you're a smaller brand, partner up with some of the bigger, well known brands, leverage them in your collaterals. So maybe they're the headliner and you're the opening act or whatever it is. So you're still
Exactly.
getting the right people to your events, which I think is a very good tip.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Collaborations. It's all about collaborations, especially when you have small budgets.
Absolutely. Are there any other tips on collaborations? Have you collaborated with any associations or chambers of commerce, anything like that to get things rolling?
So, my tips on collaborations is look, I don't think any one collaboration has been incredible. I think it's just chipping away lots of little collaborations. And look, I think the most important thing when you're collaborating with someone is just to be really upfront around what you're hoping to achieve and really set it out in an email to make it really clear and actually becomes a contract. If you send someone an email that says, this is what we will do, point, this is what we would like in return, point. And actually, I just got one last week and someone approached us asking Honeycombers to sponsor an event. And I was like, yeah, great. And Launchpad would love to be involved and we could host a talk at your event with Launchpad members. And they were like, yes, great, done. So you can, I suppose, there's so much you can do, but just again, keep it simple, keep it clear, be really upfront about what the exchange is, what you're willing to do in exchange for what you expect from them. Don't be afraid to ask. And yeah, I'm actually just reaching out to really big guys like Canva and Active Campaign. Like I'm hitting up all these bigger, much bigger organizations. And it's really interesting to see some of them come back really quickly and say, yep, let's jump on a call. And don't be afraid to ask is what I would be my advice.
Yeah, I think to your point, making it very clear what's in it for them and what you're going to provide in return and what the exchange is. Otherwise, like you said, you're just asking them for a favor, which most folks do. They don't necessarily think about what's in it for the other partner. So I think something that's common sense for a lot of folks, but we tend to forget it when reaching out to others.
Yeah, and I suppose it comes from my advertising sales background. I think if you can let someone understand what's the win for them and what's the win for you and put it that really in that really simple format, it makes it really easy for people to say yes. So also when you're creating a collaboration, think about what can you do to make it easy for them to say yes. So if they have to think less about it, perfect. If they have to, like, basically you want to do all the work for them so they can just go, this sounds great, yes. So you're really thinking about making it easy for them.
Absolutely. Now, Chris, are there any other tips or tricks, things that I've missed out when it talks to building, growing, or monetizing a community that you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, I feel we have had a lot of success with Launchpad. I'm very thrilled with what we've achieved in the first year, but I also feel pretty new at it too. What else can I share with you? Look, I feel like I've learned a lot from my network. So I feel like leaning on your network and asking questions and asking advice and reaching out to other communities looking at what other communities are doing. I just noticed today actually that another community is using the same incentive that we used last month. And I'm like, that's great. They're looking at what we're doing, and you can get that inspiration if you join other communities. But yeah, I think like learning and listening, there's a lot of great content out there about how to run a community. But the main thing is just spending time with your community members and really getting to know them. We have a co-working day every week, so we're really close to our community members. We get to spend lots of time with them. But yeah, I think there's also, I'll add one other thing. There are some great resources of people, particularly in the States, that educate people on how to run communities. So there is a community called Learn.community by Tom Ross that I joined that I thought was really useful, and you can ask questions in there. But yeah, there's a few community experts out there in the interweb, and there's some great podcasts on communities. So there's a lot of great content that you can dive into and soak it all up.
Awesome. We'll have to include those in the show links. I'm happy to, like I said, stalk you guys as well to see what your community is and get some ideas from there. But Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming to the show and sharing all your insights on community building. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. And for everyone watching, listening to today's episode, feel free to share it with your boss, your colleague. There's so many great tips in here. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next episode.